Welcome to Critical DMG, a podcast about two best friends who might have grown up but never grew out of their love for the Game Boy. We will be playing and reviewing every North American title released on Nintendo's original handheld console. This is episode 33. I'm Tony, and this was quite the quest indeed.
A gargoyle quest, you might say.
Yeah.
And I'm Jeff, and yeah, we're talking about Gargoyle's quest today. We did just want to give everyone who's watching on YouTube a quick flash warning.
Yes.
There are some points in the title screen and other places where the game does kind of strobe a little bit, so if you're sensitive to that, just be aware it does happen, and maybe don't watch on YouTube if you're sensitive to that. So, before we get too far into it, Tony, what's your immediate opinion on this game? Would you suggest someone use the batteries to play this one?
Oh, I'm going to say yes, but I have to put some caveats to get into later on.
Okay, so a yes asterisk for you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm probably the same in that regard. I think overall, yes.
Okay.
But after listening to the show, you might have a better understanding of if this game is for you or not.
Yeah, I'm curious to know if we're going to have the same issues.
We'll see. But tell us what Capcom wanted us to know on the box.
Okay. Gargoyle's Quest brings big screen action to Game Boy. You are Firebrand, Gargoyle, and proud guardian of the Ghoul Realm. The destroyers have returned to wipe out your planet, and they take no prisoners. Use your breath of fire and your flying ability to combat the enemy. Fight heroically, and you'll recover stolen magic items that will strengthen you for your many battles. Detailed graphics set new standards for Game Boy. Fascinating new epic adventure story. For one player only.
One player only.
Yep, no game link here.
Nope. So it is a Capcom game, and yeah, released in July of 1990, and it's part of the Ghosts and Goblins series, which I never really played much of. Did you play any of the other, entries into that series?
I have, and that will color my feelings on this game.
All right. Well, anything else you want to bring up before we get into the mechanics, or do you want to just dive into it?
Just, hello, Capcom. Nice to see you. Welcome to the show.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see all of the rest of what you have on offer. Other than that, I mean, yeah, this is ghouls and ghosts, ghosts and goblins, Makaimura, that sort of thing. I think without getting too much into things mechanically, another thing to note up here is this is definitely I think this is the longest game that we've had on the show so far.
I would agree. Maybe some of the puzzle games would potentially rival it in its length, but with all new content or, kind of start to finish, I would agree. I think this is probably one of the longest games, but that sounds like mechanics. So do you want to dive into that?
Yes, let's move on and really get into this game.
All right. So as far as the genre, it's an action-adventure. I would say probably our first foray into kind of an RPG, even though you're not leveling up and that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I would say it fits that genre pretty well. Your goal is to defeat the Destroyer's King, Brieger is what I'm going to call him, and save the Ghoul Realm. So kind of your classic action-adventure RPG sort of quest. You have to use your gargoyle to go on a quest. Controls, there are two main sections of this game, kind of an overworld, in which case your D-pad moves you around. A will bring up a menu that allows you to talk, use, it's called level, but it lets you check your inventory and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then check, which lets you pick up items, that sort of stuff. Then there's an action platforming section where left and right moves you left and right. A will jump, and then if you press it again while you're in the air, you kind of fly or really kind of float. And then B shoots your fireball. So pretty simple controls. Tony, how far did you get in this game? Did you defeat the evil king and save the Ghoul Realm, or what was your gameplay experience like?
So I did not look up anything after the fact. Like, I did not find out what the ultimate end of the game is.
Okay.
I don't know exactly how far into the game I got. You know, it's not like they give you a level readout or anything to know, but I can say that I had reached King Darkoan, Darkoan.
Okay.
And I had given him the candle of the poltergeist and, like, revived him, and that was basically where I had left off.
Okay. How long did it take you to get to that point?
I believe I played for probably somewhere in the area of an hour and a half.
Okay.
2 separate sessions. The first time was about 30 or 40 minutes, and then the second time was about like another 40 minutes or so.
Okay. I played for, maybe 2-3 hours or so I got a bit further than you did.
Yeah.
And then, I just spoiled it by watching other runs and reading guides and things like that. The time estimates for this game, I feel, are kind of all over the place. How long to beat has it about 3 to 4 hours, which I think is way too short. GameFAQs has it at 9 hours, which I think is probably closer, but maybe a little bit on the long side. So, maybe somewhere in the middle of that is about how long I would say. And I think, looking at my gameplay and kind of the guides that I did look up, I would say that tracks with your timing and everything. The speed run is 25 minutes. Ooh. So, you can get through it quickly if you know what you're doing. I was expecting some shenanigans there, but no, it's just clean gameplay. And as far as I could tell, really kind of hustling and knowing where you're going.
Oh, wow.
But part of the game is in the overworld, there is some of this exploration and things like that. So I could see it really mattering, going to the right places, kind of doing all those things. And your first playthrough, it's probably going to take longer. And I think it's the first time, we've really experienced that sort of gameplay here on the Game Boy, where we have a lot of open world, so to speak, of stuff to look at.
Yeah, and you definitely can kind of tell where they want you to go for things, because there are NPCs in town that you can talk to, and they'll tell you, oh, such and such item is in the northeast, or such and such character is down south. You gotta go find them, that sort of thing. So this is definitely one of those RPGs where if you don't know where to go already, talking to everybody is the best way to kind of figure it out. As far as I could tell from the people that, well, not people, they're all like demons or ghouls or whatever it is in this game, but like all of the characters that I spoke to in the different towns, when they say, I saw a strange item to the southeast under a tree, they literally mean if you go to the southeast corner of the map and you go to the tree that's like in a corner by itself and you do the check action, you'll find like a special item.
Yeah.
That's literally how you have to find the wings that let you like jump across the gap in this one area of the game to like let you progress. And you wouldn't know that without talking to that particular NPC in that particular town or having seen someone else do it, because it's not like marked on the map or anything like that. You literally have to just go to that spot and be like, I guess I'll check here. And then it's there.
Yeah, I agree. There are, some of those RPG elements where some things kind of feel a bit arbitrary or missable.
Yeah.
I will say, though, I never really ran into an issue with that. But it really felt through kind of my entire gameplay that if I kind of felt like I didn't know where I was going, just go back to the town, the closest town, talk to the people, and it wasn't super hand-holdy, but it definitely wasn't obscure, or it felt very upfront with the information as long as you talked to everyone, which is, maybe a little bit cumbersome at times because I don't like to read dialogue a whole lot. So, sometimes that's a little bit of a challenge for me, but I did appreciate that it did feel that you had all of the information you needed.
I mean, it certainly doesn't help that the dialogue here is presented in the slowest, like, most cumbersome boxes to slog through.
Yeah.
I mean, the text is huge, which I guess is nice for readability's sake, but like, there will be times where it'll be like 3 words per dialogue box, and the thing that the character is trying to say to you is like 1 single sentence or like 2 sentences long, and it could have fit in like 1 or 2 boxes, and it's spread across like 4.
Yeah.
And it's just really annoying. Like, it's a lot to get through, especially when a lot of the NPCs kind of say the same things, especially if you are going for your password, which I did like. I do like that instead of saving your game to a save file, they give you a password. I think that that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Very Capcom. You know, you could almost pinpoint what letters were changing to mean something else, the way that Mega Man passwords work. So I was like, I see you, Capcom. I like that. But the text is the same every time. Oh, you got to be renewed by saying the chant of resurrection. Here it is. And then it's a string of 8 characters.
Yeah, and then it's like, you better remember this, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, I'll only tell it to you this time. And it's like, but you just told me.
Yeah. I am curious on, the password system, because it seems kind of like Fist of the North Star, where it seemed like they were storing a lot of information in the passwords.
Right.
If you spoke to them back to back, it seemed like it gave you 2 different passwords.
Wow, I never noticed that.
I could be wrong, but it seemed like it gave 2 different passwords, so I don't know if it was pulling a timestamp. I would have assumed it would have just kind of checked your progress and what items you had, but who knows? If anyone has any more insight in that, definitely let us know. But I agree with you. I liked that system of saving. And it also kind of made it feel, if you did die in a dungeon or something like that, it made it feel not quite as bad because, 1, I feel like they were pretty generous with where they revived you.
Yeah.
And 2, you could always just put in the password and kind of start back from where you were.
Yeah, because there's one in every, like, town. And there's one part of the map where it's like town, very short combat area, and then another town immediately after that. So, like, you can get a new password pretty much immediately. So it feels just as good as one of those old style save systems, like, oh, you can only save at the inn.
Yeah.
Sort of the same kind of deal, but instead of relying on you, like, actually saving and overwriting the file or whatever, it's just a different password. Like, I wrote down, I think, like 6 or 7 of them as I played, just to make sure in case I finished and I stopped playing, I was going to be able to come back. And I liked that. Like, that was a very charming, old school kind of feeling.
Agreed, yeah. And as you're going through the game, you're kind of going between the different towns, and then I guess dungeon sections is kind of what I would equate them to or call them. And as you're in the overworld, you'll just randomly encounter an enemy. And when you defeat that enemy or that little section, you get vials. And vials are kind of the main currency, we'll say.
Yeah.
That you can trade to get talismans of the cyclone. Sorry, I was looking it up because I couldn't remember exactly what it was. But talismans of the cyclone are essentially just kind of the fancy way of saying extra lives.
That's what that means?
Yeah.
I never figured it out. I was like, why do I want to buy these? I don't know what these are supposed to do, and I don't think it really explains in the manual. I have problems with the manual that I'm saving for the aesthetic section, but that's one of them, is that I don't think that they describe that.
We won't get into the manual right now, because I think, I agree. But yeah, the talismans are essentially your extra lives.
Oh, okay.
You can use the vials, which you get pretty frequently, and buy extra lives with them, which is kind of nice. And so I do think that's a relatively generous system that they have, and you can typically stock up, probably like 5 to 10 extra lives pretty easily.
Huh. I didn't buy really very many because I did not know that they were extra lives. So interesting. That's good to know, I guess.
Yeah, when you go back and revisit, definitely it helps.
Yeah, so I'm gonna get into what I think is the crux of my issue with this game,
All right, go for it.
because I do have a lot of good to say. I love that it's basically a Legend of Zelda 2 Adventures of Link on the Game Boy. Like, very much that game. If anyone's ever played that, you have an overworld that you're walking around on, and then there's random battles that are 2D side-scrolling combat instead. I love that. I love when games like mash up genres in that way. But here in this game, unlike that game, the battles are random in a like Final Fantasy or, Dragon Quest kind of way, like entirely random.
Mm-hmm.
And they are pretty frequent sometimes. But unlike those kinds of RPGs, you don't get anything from them except money, and sometimes you don't even get that, and you can't hold that many vials anyway. So eventually it gets to a point that you're walking around the overworld sections are being interrupted by these just like really short, and I mean really short, sometimes there's only like 1 or 2 enemies to get through, really short combat sections, and then you've got to wait for the fanfare and the victory dialogue to go away and everything else before you can just start walking again.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the most tedious and frustrating parts of old RPGs.
I agree with you. A lot of the random encounters kind of felt pointless. In a lot of them, the loading into the encounter and loading out of took just as long, if not longer.
Oh, yeah.
That always feels bad. But, the vials are useful, and I guess having them happen pretty frequently gives you some potential to farm them if you need extra lives. But I agree. If there was some sort of like repel or some way to have them not trigger that you could purchase, I think that would have been a net positive.
Oh, yeah. So you take that, and then you mix it with what is very obviously pretty typical Ghosts and Goblins, Makayamura platforming combat stuff in the actual level design. And there are many points in this game where where you really have to be a glutton for punishment to want to play this game. That's not to say it's rip your hair out hard and one of the most difficult things that I've ever had to suffer through. Like, definitely not. It is totally doable, but you don't have a lot of health. Things hit you pretty easily. Lots of stuff instantly kills you.
Mm-hmm.
Traps and cheap enemy placement, and you're able to cling on walls, and your jump off of walls is diagonal. You can't just like drop from a wall.
That was very frustrating.
Yeah, like you have to plan how you're going to rebound off of a wall because you can't just like detach. So you have to know what you're getting into with how difficult and frustrating this game is. And so when you pair that with obnoxious and frustrating random battle stuff that's going on in the overworld section, it's like, man, there is a lot here that I do like, but it's a lot to overcome at the same time.
I can understand a lot of that. I do think, yeah, the game, as you go through, does get a bit better with giving you a bit more life and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But definitely at the start, I agree with you. You can take 2 hits and it's pretty frustrating when, yeah, sometimes the hitboxes are just a little wonky, or like you said, you wall grab and then you happen to be just too close to a spike on the roof. And so when you jump off, you jump into the spike. That feels quite bad. But broadly, I think, I don't know, I think it did do a good job of capturing that as you go through the game, it starts to get easier and more challenging at the same time, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
The enemies and everything are getting more challenging, but you're getting more and more tools to combat that. And that's what I really like about RPGs or about, Metroidvanias, that sort of game.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this did a decent job of doing that, even though, yeah, it was a bit clunky or a bit frustrating at times.
Yeah, there is definitely a sense of progression here, and you can see it visibly represented by new fire breath attacks that you can do, or how far you're able to sustain yourself in the air, or how high you can jump, or whatever else. And I think that the game does a good job of making the levels adapt to your new abilities. So like, once you're able to jump higher, the levels that come after that require you to be better about your platforming and make sure you're doing the flight at the apex of your jump so you can make it to the area you need to get to, or otherwise you'll fall. Like, it's tough, but it is fair. I don't think that it's ever unfair. It's just the mechanics here are like baked in to be difficult on purpose. It's not like they just accidentally made the way that you cling onto walls and jump off of them so frustrating. It's on purpose.
Yeah, and the manual does call it out.
Yeah, I noticed that. It does specifically say, like, sometimes
whenever Firebrand is clinging to a wall, he will jump upwards a little bit when you hit the A button and press. Remember this.
Right.
You will want to gauge how far up a wall you want to place your character to avoid the numerous hazards. So, you know, in their little hint section, they do mention that. And yeah, it is baked in, and it's, you know, intentional, which I feel like anytime those mechanics are intentional, they do feel better than when it's just like pure jank.
Yes.
But it doesn't make it less frustrating when you have one life left and you're about to beat a level, and then you just happen to cling a little bit too far up on the wall, and then, you know, you have to restart the level.
Of course.
But I kind of like those things. Some things they definitely could have done better, but I think overall, broadly, pretty decent.
Yeah, I'm not really into the like super punishing, like careful planning type platforming and stuff that's required for something like this, or Ghouls and Ghosts or whatever. That doesn't mean that I can't still look at it and recognize that it is mechanically strong and well done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, yeah, there are some things that could have been done better, but for this early, like we're still in 1990, I think that this is very mechanically sound.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I think that's very fair. And the last thing I did want to say, and I don't know if you got to any of these areas, but there were definitely a non-zero number of areas where the slowdown was quite evident.
Yes, right.
You know, specifically, there's one level that I don't think you got to where there are these like plant snake things that chase you around. And at one point, there are 3 of them on the screen with you, and it gets really kind of chugging along at that point. But for the most part, it never really felt horrible. It never felt like it, you know, 8 inputs or anything like that. It was still playable, but I think this is the worst kind of slowdowns that we've seen. And I can understand it because they're trying to, you know, put a lot of enemies, etc. on the screen and trying to do a lot. But I did just want to note that.
That's a good point. I actually, that slipped my mind because, yeah, you are totally correct. There is some pretty serious slowdown here. Definitely more than we have seen in a good long time on the show. Good, worth noting.
Yeah. And a little unfortunate that they typically happened when a lot of things were happening, which is kind of bad because that's when you kind of want to focus and make sure you don't die.
Of course.
Again, overall, it felt like you could kind of force your way through it, but wasn't the best.
Yeah.
But that was the last thing I had in the mechanics. So I think after a quick ad break, we can talk about some of the creative stuff.
Yep. Ad break.
Dang it!
What's up, sport?
This game is too hard.
Aw, don't let it get you down. Why not take a break and listen to the Critical DMG podcast?
How would that help me?
It won't.
Then why would I listen to a show about 2 old people talking about Game Boy games for an hour?
Hey!
I think I'll just go back to Minecraft.
You know, the original Game Boy might not have been internet connected, but we sure are. So if you'd like to reach out to us, you could find us on Blue Sky at criticaldmgpod.bsky.social, or you could email us at criticaldmgpod@gmail.com. And either of those will get to us faster than you would expect for people who are stuck on tech from the 1990s. And we're back. It probably goes without saying that the music is good here, right? Like, I feel like that's sort of just, we don't really need to go over that too much. It was sort of expected.
Yeah, I will say, so in the title screen, you open it and it kind of scrolls through the starting story, which I appreciate.
Yes, I did too.
There's this one note that it hits that is just like a little bit too high, or a little bit too like tingy or something.
Yeah.
And a lot of games use this, and I think I probably comment on it almost.
I think you do.
Any game that does use it.
Uh-huh.
I don't know what it is about that one pitch in Game Boy Audio, but it just like really is almost a little bit like nails on chalkboard sort of thing for me. But aside from that, I think very, very good. And yeah, it's just that one note. Just don't play that one note, and then it's great.
That's so funny. I think you do, actually. I think you do make note of it every time it happens. I do like the intro as well. I think that that's great. Again, this is probably the first game that we've had that's really had a concrete story that was presented in the game. I mean, I guess you could say that Wizards and Warriors X sort of had the same thing going on in their intro.
Yeah.
But, like, this is definitely way more of a story than that game gave you. Like, the story for that game basically started and stopped at the intro, like, text crawl or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
This one being an RPG, it keeps going. You've got NPCs to talk to, and some of them give you useful information. Some of them are just there for flavor, just like they ought to be.
Yeah, I feel like this is the first game that we've had that you're actually kind of in the story and doing the story things.
Right.
Mario, you're saving the princess, but you're not progressing a story or anything, really. Technically you are, but I feel like this, really feels like the first game where you're part of the story and progressing the story, not just doing things and then being told why that matters.
For this game being the first to really do it for us here in the North America Game Boy releases, I think it's an admirable effort.
Yeah. I will say, I guess, getting into what we kind of led with earlier, the manual is questionable.
No, okay. I want to say, and I almost made this my bit at the beginning of this episode, but I waited until right here. 1, I hate the cover art for this game. 2, this does not look like Firebrand, the like red demon guy from Ghosts and Goblins that it's supposed to be. It looks like Shrek with wings. Like, it's awful. I hate it. The manual and the cover of this game, if I was not like forced to play through this for the chronology of the show, this is not something that I ever would have gravitated toward. It looks so bad, and the manual is so flavorless and unhelpful. It's so frustrating. And so go ahead and say your piece, because then I want to bring up the Japanese manual.
Yeah, so one, this manual was a little harder for me to find than other ones.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you. It is like strangely not in line with kind of the vibe of the game. And I think it's the first manual that we've seen that had advertisements in it.
3 of them, 3 separate advertisements in like 15 pages of manual.
Yeah, almost more advertising than actual manual. But I don't know, it felt weird when I opened it. It was definitely felt kind of bizarre.
Yeah, that's one way to put it. So I found the North American release manual, and I also found a scan of the Japanese manual.
Ooh, I would be interested to see that one.
I will make sure to send it to you post-show. Remind me. And this is generic we, not just you and I, but anyone who has dabbled in retro games of this era, and especially those of us who lived through it, I'm sure will understand that this period of time, when it came to how things made the transition from Japanese originating point to the North American market, was a big difference. We've seen it a little bit so far in like how Daedalian Opus was originally called Boken Puzzle Road.
Which makes a lot more sense.
Yes, exactly. Or like Dexterity and Funny Field that we just covered. So like, we are definitely starting to see it more now than we did at the beginning of the show, when things were all the same. Baseball was baseball, alleyway was alleyway, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're really starting to see things kind of be like bent to the expectations of the North American market for whatever that is worth of the 1990s. And in this instance here, it really is such a disappointment. The Japanese manual is 30 pages.
Oh, wow.
None of those are ads. Most of them are full color, like illustrations of either things that you do in the game with text descriptions, or just really cute depictions of like interacting with NPCs or resurrecting at the resurrection song or whatever else. And it made my jaw kind of hit the floor, you know?
I did find it very kind of disheartening that this game has a lot of enemies in it that are really kind of interesting and I think well done.
Yes.
And typically, the manual is kind of where they showcase that sort of thing. The US manual has 2 pages. Page 12 and 13 are 8 characters, and that's it. And that is such a small slice of what you actually see in the game. They have none of the bosses. They have none of the other characters. It's just those 8. And I can't really understand why they chose those 8. They kind of seem random to me. And yeah, that was definitely a letdown looking through this manual. And yeah, when you devote more pages to ads than the actual character sprites, that just feels bad.
Yeah. Cover to cover, the North American manual is like 16 pages, I think. 3 of those are ads for other games. One of them is a thank you letter from the VP of Capcom or something like that. And then there's the usual, you know, warranties and warnings and all of the rest of that stuff. But like the actual game related art and helpful information content is only like half of the actual page count of the manual.
Yeah.
Anyway, getting onto a better topic. You were just talking about the sprites. I think that all of the sprites here are phenomenal. I think that when they said on the back of the box that it was like top-notch Game Boy graphics or whatever they said, I mean, it really kind of is. We don't see, or rather, we haven't seen many games on the Game Boy that have depicted the action and the sprites and the stuff on screen as boldly and clearly and as stylistically as this game does.
I was about to say, a lot of this creative discussion might be on the manual because honestly, the rest of it is just very, very good and very well done. And yeah, I think exactly what you said. Everything is smooth, readable, easy to tell what's going on. The sprites all look, you know, quite good. And aside from, again, kind of the slowdowns that we talked about, but yeah, it creatively outside of the manual, I think this game knocks it out of the park.
Yeah, it does. And despite having lots of things going on screen, the flickering isn't intolerable. Very similarly to the slowdown, it does happen, but it's not like game ruining or anything like that. I will say at least 1 or 2 sections that I played through there is some really egregious screen flashing.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes on for several seconds before anything it happens to let you stop it. So that's not great.
Yeah. Even the title screen, it's pretty short, but it definitely flashes and strobes.
Uh-huh.
Even when the title screen starts out with that kind of flashing, maybe not a great thing. And then, yeah, that was definitely one of the notes that I put as well. There are some times where, yeah, you beat a level or things happen and it flashes for a long time and it's not super enjoyable to watch.
So I think the last thing that I really have to say, because I do also want to get onto the quiz here, is we didn't really say a lot on the sound effects, but again, they're great. It's Capcom, and this is kind of like a tried and true formula for them at this point almost, so it sounds good in all departments. But as much as I do like the music and all of the sound design and everything in this game, the fanfare after you like finish a fight or whenever you find an item on the ground or whatever, oh man, I got so sick of hearing it so fast.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Some of the sound effects are maybe a little bit much or jarring or something, but that one specifically, yeah, was a little frustrating.
Yeah, you just hear it so much. Like, especially if you are finding multiple things within close proximity of each other, or like coming off the back of a fight and then finding an item or something, and you just hear it over and over and over. And I had never wished for a fast forward button more than at that time.
Fair enough, but I think with that, let's fast forward into our wrap up.
Oh, segue.
Yeah, you're a kind of a yes asterisk. How are you feeling after we've talked about it for a bit?
There is so much good here that it feels like it's kind of impossible not to recommend, honestly, because it's not like I have any kind of fundamental problem with the game. It's not doing anything wrong. It's not unfun to play. It wasn't overly frustrating or anything like that. But I also know that that won't be the case for everyone, because it is a difficult on purpose game with some kind of needling factors that are put in there specifically to make it harder on you the entire time. And if you aren't built for that, or you're not interested in playing a game that demands that of you unflinchingly, and there's nothing that you can do about it, there's no difficulty settings to manage or anything here, you just have to play it and improve or do not progress.
Just get good.
Yeah. I don't really like using that, but like I understand that's like a really easy way to like underline, because yeah, you can't do anything other than improve. You either improve or you don't get to see more of the game.
Yeah.
And I don't think that that's a flaw on the game here. It's just you're either here for that or you're not. So
to note, when I say get good, I don't mean it in like a toxic way, which I know a lot of times it is used as that. For anyone who is thinking that I might, no, I use it more as a joke than anything else.
Of course.
But I do kind of like those games. And yeah, I just finished up playing Nine Souls for the Patreon. And yeah, that is very much so a game where you just have to kind of bash your head against enemies every once in a while. And I typically enjoy those. So I think I'm actually going to upgrade this to just a flat yes to me.
Wow, nice.
Yeah, I do quite enjoy it. And yeah, while sometimes it can be frustrating, sometimes it can kind of require you to put the Game Boy aside, take a breather, come back to it at a later date. I think it was quite fun, and I think it showcased a lot of new things that we haven't seen. And I think that's notable, and I want to commend it for it. I will say this is a longer game, so being worth the batteries means a little bit more here, because it is, more of a 4, 5, 9 hour game, but I still think it's worth it.
On reflecting a little bit more, listening to why you were upgrading your initial opinion to say that you unequivocally do recommend this one. I think that I'm pretty much in the same boat. There's not enough here that graded against me or anything like that that I can say that I would not recommend this game wholeheartedly. I did enjoy it, even though I'm not someone who really typically enjoys these games that, for anyone who watches the YouTuber SNES Drunk, he's called them pick up and die games before. I think that's a pretty apt description. I'm not usually a fan of that, but I didn't really die too much here. And when I did, the resurrection system works so well anyway that it didn't feel super punishing like it does in other cases. So I think I recommend this wholeheartedly as well. But anybody who comes into this game, you are going to need to know what you're getting into.
100%.
I don't know that that's necessarily a caveat I need to put on the game. It's just something that you are going to have to understand that it is going to make demands of your game playing abilities, I suppose. And if you aren't here for that, well,
I'll agree. I think this is probably one of the more polarizing games. I think some people will really like it. I think some people will really bounce off of it to no fault of the game. You know, we've had baseball where I feel the game was just flat out bad. I think some people could pick this up and like it less than baseball, not because it's a bad game, but just because it requires a certain amount or a certain desire to play this type of game that, you know, understandably not everyone has.
oh yeah, the first time that you jump and cling onto a wall and then jump off at that weird angle and get yourself killed, you will absolutely have to sit and think for a minute and be like, the game is going to be like this.
Yeah.
Do I want to continue playing this game? And I think it's worth it. Jeff, it definitely sounds like you think it's worth it. So if you decide to play it, just know that that's what you're going to have to deal with, and it might still be worth it. Anyway, I believe that makes it quiz time.
So I'm currently, again, doing quite well. I'm at 81.6%, and hopefully I can keep that streak going, but I feel like I'm in store for a doozy, so we'll see how Gargoyle's Quest treats me.
Quiz Quest.
Quiz Quest. If that's not a game, I'd be shocked.
You stole the words right out of my mouth. I was like, that's got to be a game. All right. Gargoyle's Quest quiz. Question 1. In a Japanese print ad I found uploaded to retromags.com by user Kitsunebi, Capcom makes mention of a special release campaign that they were running at the time. Included in the box for copies of, and the Japanese title of the game that we got as Gargoyle's Quest would have been Red Arima Makaimura Gaiden, which means Red Arimer, Demon World Village side story, is my rough translation for everybody.
Okay.
And the thing in the box for their game was a questionnaire card that could be sent back into Capcom for entry into this special release campaign. With only 1,000 winners in this sweepstakes, what was the prize on offer? Was it A, a Firebrand costume mask? B, a specially themed Game Boy portable bag? C, a poster of the opening credit scroll signed by Firebrand? Or D, a personal visit to the Demon World Village?
Oh, I feel like it has to be C. I really like the idea of A and B, but I feel like C makes a lot more sense for 1,000 people.
Is that your final answer?
It is, but the way you said that doesn't make me confident, but I'm going to go with C.
It's not. It's B.
Dang it. Oh, that was a close runner-up to me, but...
The ad itself refers to the prize for the 1,000 winners as a Red Arima no Tokusei Game Boy Keitayo bag, which I understand as a Firebrand-themed Game Boy portable bag. Despite searching and searching on both English and Japanese websites, I was unable to find any pictures or further description of this bag. So I like to think that it was a fanny pack type bag, and it was shaped like Firebrand's face. And so the mouth opened through a zipper, and that's how it would hold your stuff.
But really, if you couldn't find any evidence, how do you know it wasn't a wall scroll signed by Firebrand?
Because because the ad itself says what the prize was.
All right, fair enough. I don't think I can finagle my way out of that one.
You've still got two. You've still got two that you can get right.
Let's hope.
Although we'll figure the math out at the end. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Question 2. Gargoyle's Quest isn't just the name of this game here on the Game Boy. If you swap out the punctuation in the title by replacing the apostrophe for a colon, you suddenly have Gargoyle's Quest on your hands instead. But that could be anything. Is it true or false that Gargoyle's Quest, Gargoyle's Quest, is a comic book miniseries based on a moody 1990s cartoon show?
So you switch out the apostrophe with a colon?
Yeah, so instead of Gargoyle's Quest, possessive, like this is a Gargoyle's Quest, it becomes Gargoyle's Quest.
Oh, okay. I thought you were putting the colon between the E and the S, and I was like, that's not how words work.
These questions are hard to write and present in an audio format, okay?
Fair enough. So true or false, that is a comic book
Miniseries based on a cartoon show from the 90s.
Sure, I'm gonna go with true on that. It seems like that could be a thing.
It is true. The cartoon from the 90s, Gargoyles, actually.
Oh.
Yeah, that Gargoyles. So that cartoon continued on well after it was no longer on television. But pretty much all of the continuations were in miniseries comic books over the years.
Interesting.
So one of those that was released just a couple years ago, back in 2024, I read, it was in fact titled Gargoyles: Quest. Gargoyle's Quest. And this was a 5-issue arc by Dynamite Comics that ran from April to December of that year. But yeah, it's a mini series based on the 1990s cartoon about gargoyles in New York City.
I really liked that cartoon.
It's a good show.
Mm-hmm.
It still holds up, I'm pretty sure. Like, it's one that is very fondly remembered by you and me, and I'm sure plenty of others. I actually think they had a Gargoyles video game that came out just recently, too.
Interesting.
It was either like a remaster of an older game or like a brand new game. Anyway, 1 for 1.
Yep.
Okay, still salvageable.
We'll see.
Question 3. In a translated interview provided on the shmuplations.com website, producer of the original Japanese version of Gargoyle's Quest, Tokuro Fujiwara, says that the game was made because the team wanted to try something new within the world that they had already made with their previous hit of Ghosts and Goblins. It turned out that the Red Erimer demon was a fan favorite of a lot of people, and a demon character made for the perfect vessel for a more experimental game. But why did Fujiwara and the team at Capcom ultimately decide to make this game for the Game Boy? Was it A, it was the cheapest option? B, they were bored with arcade games? C, they didn't want to overshadow their previous games? Or D, they were looking to inflict difficult gaming on a new system?
Oh, obviously D. No. This is where, prior knowledge is coming in. Yeah, they didn't want to overshadow Ghosts and Goblins for, I guess, like arcades and the NES. So that's why they chose the Game Boy for this.
You're right. It is C. That is why they did it.
Let's go. Prior knowledge helping out.
Prior knowledge, yep. According to Tokuro Fujiwara, quote, initially we wanted to make sure we didn't overshadow Makaimura, Ghosts and Goblins, so we decided the Game Boy would be best for a first outing. Then, once that game was well received, we wanted to try doing a full-color attempt, which became Red Erimer 2 for the Famicom. I actually find that pretty interesting, honestly, and I love the idea that the Game Boy was a place where like these experienced developer teams like a Capcom could try something new or more unique than they would usually like take a gamble on with like a big arcade machine or even a home console release at that time. I love that the Game Boy is kind of like a safe way to do that.
Yeah.
And I think that that sort of tracks for handheld gaming, because I think that it's kind of always been that way. Like the handheld stuff has always been cheaper, and so a lot of more experimental stuff was put on the handheld sometimes.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I mean, I'm glad they did, because I quite like this game. So I'm happy that they experimented with it here on the Game Boy. With that, though, do you want to remind us what the listener question for Dexterity was?
Audience question for Dexterity. It was about how the board game Othello, which we had already concluded that Dexterity definitely was kind of cribbing from, was still very popular in Japan. That's where it was originated. That's where the roots for the game had come from in the 1970s. And the World Othello Championship has been hosted internationally year after year. But the question was about how many times Japan has not taken home the world champion title from the World Othello Championship. Jeff, did you have a guess? You said 2.
I said 2. I'm sticking with my 2. I don't know what percentage that would be, but I'm sticking with my 2.
Okay, well, out of the almost 50 different championships over the years, Japan has only lost the world champion title 11 times.
Okay, a little bit more than 2, but that's still, like a 90-ish% win rate, which is very, very good.
Right. The only other countries to win this particular title, apart from Japan, are Thailand, Italy, the US, France, and the Netherlands.
Again, the more you know. But what is Gargoyle's question for our listeners?
Gargoyle's question for everybody at home.
Say that 5 times fast.
That's the real challenge, actually. No quiz question. It's just a tongue twister for you at home. While the total number of pages in the Gargoyle's Quest manual is about 16 cover to cover, regrettably, 3 of those pages are taken up by ads for other Capcom games, as well as another page devoted to a thank you note from the VP of the company for selecting Gargoyle's Quest for your Game Boy system. And while it would be easy for me to ask about the NES Disney games that are being hyped up inside the manual, I would rather ask about the oddball in that group. What Capcom NES game, based on a cult classic fantasy movie of the late 80s, also gets a full-page ad in the Gargoyle's Quest manual? Jeff, do you remember which one it was? Not that you can say, but...
Adventures in the Magic Kingdom.
No, I said the non-Disney one.
Yeah, I do, but I'm not going to say.
Yeah, it's DuckTales, Adventures in the Magic Kingdom, and then this game.
Yep. So if you have a guess, let us know.
Right. Especially if you've played it before, then it would be really interesting.
Thanks for listening to Critical DMG. If you would like to support us further, you can find us on Patreon at patreon.com/criticaldmgpod. Join us there for monthly newsletters and extra content. Otherwise, please leave a review wherever you get your podcasts, and maybe recommend us to your friends or anyone else you might think that would like the show. It really helps us out, and we appreciate it. Well, I think that brings us to an end of our quest as a gargoyle.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, our first Capcom game on the Game Boy.
Lots of firsts. First Capcom game, first RPG, first long game.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for listening, and join us next week when we take on Lock and Chase, which not quite sure what that is, but we'll figure that out next week.
I'm going to go ahead and say puzzle game.
You know, it very much so sounds like a puzzle game, but we'll see.
Here on the Game Boy, it's like 50-50 that it's going to be a puzzle game at any given time.
Yep, if you're not sure, default to puzzle game.
Exactly. Anyway, until next time, bye everybody.
Goodbye.